right, so we'll discuss a few of what are considered the scariest cards of the tarot. And I love the way that you designed them because they look even scarier.
That was my goal.
Yeah.
I wanted to make the creepiest tarot deck in the world.
Yeah, and you were saying the death card, you wanted to make that just like the scariest.
That was my ultimate goal, was that when that turns over, you instantly crap your pants.
Yeah, right.
That's it.
We'll save the best one for last.
Okay.
We'll start with the Hangman. Because this one is a card, if you were ever to see it like in the Rider-Waite or any of the like OG of tarot, it just looks like this character's really uncomfortable, right? Like they're hanging from a tree upside down in this like really awkward shaped way. They don't look like they're having a good time. They look very, uncomfortable. The actual insight of this card is pretty profound. If you think of what it's like to be upside down, yeah, it could feel weird, could feel different, and sometimes that's a good thing, right? That actually motivates us, inspires us to view the world, view life in a different way, possibly in a new way that could change us for the positive or help us grow in some way. A really cool tie-in with the Hangman is, he's portrayed with this halo around his head, which if you are to look through the Major Arcana cards, another card that has that same aspect to it is the Magician. So it's kind of this tie-in of bringing on like different ideas, different ways of viewing things, so in which you can use that insight to manifest a different life for yourself, or a new path for yourself, or maybe a new skill or whatnot. So I think that's pretty cool, that tie-in with the Magician, and how the Hangman is really more so about changing your perspective, looking at things a different way, that can ultimately bring on a lot of internal growth and understanding.
Now, what does it say about a reading when the Hangman is inverted?
Oh, when it's inverted, yeah. So that can mean that you're having a little bit of difficulty with that.
Right.
Maybe you're stuck in whatever old way of thinking that just isn't serving you anymore. And I would say, getting the Hangman reverse is probably closer to that like scary description that a lot of people originally think about when they just think of the Hangman. Having him reverse is meaning that you are really kind of maybe feeling stuck in some way, or feeling uncomfortable in whatever situation that you're in because you're unable to, find a different route to do the thing or approach the situation.
So it's more literal to the imagery.
Yeah, when it's reversed.
Yeah.
Yes, totally.
That's interesting.
For sure. So the second card, I just personally really love this card because I have a very deep relationship with this card. I was pulling it a lot during a really difficult time in my life. And when I would pull it, I would instantly think like, crap, I'm gonna be impaled by these swords and my life is going to be over, and what's the point even, And I feel like a lot of people get that sense when they get the Ten of Swords, that it's instantly like, nope, whatever this situation is going to be death to you, so don't even go any further. And as I've worked with this card, I tend to think of it of who's doing the impaling, really. Because sometimes it could be like our own ideas of ourselves that can really be impaling us from moving forward in whatever situation. So I think this card is really a beautiful card also for taking that step back and really thinking, is this situation that may be, negative, am I maybe perceiving it in that way, and is there a way that I can you know, work with it, grow in the way that I view myself or my perspective to support me in whatever it is that I want to do.
That makes sense.
So on to the next one, which is the Tower. I'd say the Tower is probably like one of the most famous tarot cards because it's so scary.
I'll tell you, it was one of my most fun cards to draw, just because it has so much power and it's so dynamic. You know, you have the thunderbolt and the lightning and these bodies falling from the tower, and 8 billion bricks. I brought that on myself to draw all this.
Wow. Yeah, there's a lot of bricks in there.
A lot of bricks. A lot of bricks. My hand was like gnarled up after that card.
Yeah, and I love the way that you drew it too, because the tower's not broken.
Right.
You know, the tower is still you know, constructed and still standing, which is really cool. You know, so this one's a really interesting one because I perceive that, you know, when I first started getting into tarot, I would see the tower and I'd be like, oh my God, there's just like death and destruction.
It's such a doomsday card, right?
It is, yeah. And what it really signifies though is change.
Right.
You know, like, and which can be really scary for a lot of people. So if you're someone who actually is afraid of change, this can still be a scary card for you.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
But ultimately, what is life other than us constantly changing and growing? So it's going to come to a point where it's inevitable. And, you know, maybe even by seeing it as a scary thing, you're making it worse kind of situation. So, you know, the tower can be that permission sometimes for people that, you know, it's okay, you can move forward in this. This is actually something that is going to serve you. You know, might seem really scary now, might feel like your foundation is completely crumbling underneath your feet, but this is part of the process, part of life.
Embrace it.
Exactly, yeah. And, you know, who knows where you're gonna go from there. So that is a really beautiful card when viewed in that way and used as more of an insight really in the fact that change is inevitable, and, you know, can give you a little bit of an idea of like, is it gonna happen now? Is it gonna happen 2 months from now? You know, so seeing in a reading around other cards, you can kind of get a sense like, is this going to happen right away? Is it going to happen in a couple months? So it kind of gives you a little bit of insight in that way, a little bit of guidance in that way of like what to expect.
Like a heads up.
So yeah, exactly. Yeah, so the next card is the Devil card, which this devil is so cool. I really love the way that you drew it. It just looks like straight up like if I were to envision like what Satan looks like.
That's
like
him.
Yeah, that's him right there.
Nailed it.
Yeah, so this card is another one that just is really like daunting. You have this really scary figure, this devilish creature, you know, a demon of some sorts, which when you think about demons, you know, everyone's scared of demons, but I personally think that demons are, you know, communicators of what we're choosing to not look at sometimes. You know, usually they have some insight for us.
That's interesting, okay.
Yeah. But with the devil specifically, and in this card, it looks like they're young children, so that's even creepier. And usually it's portrayed with, you know, this chain around their necks, and you have the chain portrayed here too, which is really cool. And they're almost like hypnotized by this creature, right? And so the fact that they don't even have chains on them, like in your version, means that they could run away at any time.
Well, we can't see their ankles.
Yeah, oh, that's true, Their ankles might be chained, exactly. Well, I'm gonna work off the fact that they're not chained. And they're just staring at this, you know, this satanic creature, just kind of like in awe of him. And, you know, this card really gives us a lot of insight in what are we moving towards in our lives that maybe isn't actually serving us in a positive way. And that we, at any point, can, you know, move away from that and that it'll be okay. So what is it within us that's keeping us tied down to this situation or this, thing that we're doing, whatever it may be, addictions, bad habits, anything like that. That is not serving us.
Can it ever represent someone in your life? Or is it mostly about behaviors?
I've read it about behaviors. I think that it could definitely represent someone in your life. I mean, even if you had someone in your life that, you're keeping around that may be represented by this devilish creature, what is it about them that's keeping you with this person? So that in itself is also like an addictive behavior. You can be addicted to people just as you can be addicted to like a substance or something like that. So that's really interesting too, and that can very well represent someone, for whoever, if it is a particular person that, they either have felt, tied with, maybe they feel like they have some sort of contract with them or something like that, like a spiritual contract with this person or this thing that they can't get away from it. So, how can you see that for what it is and move forward? I feel like this is a really good card for bringing that to light. So, all right, so coming to the best for last card here, the death
favorite.
card.
Yes, what do you got in store?
So this one is, I would say, probably notoriously one of the scariest cards. And I think it's because it's titled Death, so people ultimately think of death.
I'm done.
That's it.
That's it. End the reading right now.
My life is over. I'm going to look a million ways before I cross the street. But as we explore this card further, death doesn't have to mean the death of a life. It can mean, the death of something that isn't serving us, or of an old idea, or whatever that we might be, ruminating on in our minds that ultimately isn't supporting us in our journey.
Almost like putting something behind you.
Yeah, kind of letting it go, right? And it could also mean the conception and the birth of a new opportunity. Something when something dies, gives that opportunity for something new to be born.
Sure.
So it could even be a card of, releasing of something and bringing about something new and different that could actually be really supportive for you. And if we think of the death card, I like to think of the death card in respect to the birth of something. When we think of the death as something being reborn, even in that form of conception, people, animals, insects, when they're in that place of conception, being reborn, whether in a womb or in a cocoon, they're in this place of darkness that can seem really scary and death-like. But through that darkness is actually that ability to be reborn into something else and the opportunities that come along with that. So that is, a really beautiful card if you look at it that way.
Right, not so scary.
Yeah.
Although I try to draw it as scary as possible.
This is definitely the scariest the death card that I've ever seen.
Yes!
So you've succeeded.
Awesome.
Cool.